So far on AutoCheck, we've concentrated pretty much exclusively on the high end of the automotive scale. For the next little while, we're going to look at the opposite end of the spectrum to see what's available in the low-priced economy cars. Tonight is a Toyota Tercel, supplied to us by Bill Dockstader Toyota on Kingsway. Tony, it's obvious that we're not going to be able to judge these kinds of cars by the same standards that we've used for the high-performance sports cars.
Yeah, that's correct, Dave. I think in the small town cars, I'd like to call them, we've got to look for, first of all, the price, second, fuel economy, third, comfort, and fourth, maneuverability.
A 1984 Toyota Tercel will cost you $7,000 for the very basic two-door hatchback. What do you get for the money? Well, you don't get a radio, but you do get a well-laid-out functional control panel for the wipers, heater, lights, and instruments. You don't get fancy wheels, but you do get radial tires. You don't get luxurious upholstery, but you do get seating for four covered in durable vinyl. You don't get turbochargers and other high-tech bells and whistles, but you do get a willing 1500cc engine that sips gas sparingly. To get a feel for the car, Tony took a few turns around the racetrack before offering his opinion.
Today I've sort of found this car is great for nipping along the highway, and I guess basically we've got to remember this is a town car. But we've come up a couple of hills, and that's where it's basically ran out of steam. The vision in the car is good, sideways, rear vision, front vision. The seating position is fine, the headroom is fine for me. I'd be interested to see somebody over 6 feet sitting in it, but the legroom's fine, and the actual front end of the car is nicely laid out a la Japanese style, which is great. You have a speedometer, water gauge, and the gas gauge. That's it. For a town car, again, I keep emphasizing this, but it is basically all you need. All the other dials that we've seen in other cars aren't really appropriate when you're discussing in town cars.
The only option that our test car was equipped with was the 3-speed automatic transmission. It's a $600 extra, and for our money, it wasn't worth it.
One point I would like to make in this car that we have today is the automatic transmission. If it was a $600 option I would personally be offered, I would prefer to spend my $600 somewhere else and use the manual 4-speed. I'm sure we'll get better performance from the car with the 4-speed rather than the automatic. However, if automatic is the way that you like to go in an automobile, this one is perfectly adequate.
Assuming that small cars like the Tercel will spend a lot of time in city traffic, we felt that low-speed maneuverability was more important than flat-out performance. Here's what Tony had to say about the Tercel on the slalom course and about parking the diminutive Toyota in a tight space.
In the slalom that we did, it did handle really well. However, it was a lot harder to drive than I would have expected. In the parking maneuver we did, it was extremely hard to drive. I would suggest, myself being in the automotive business and basically in the tire business, that if there are any ladies in Tercels right now that found steering the car at slow speeds and in parking a disadvantage, to put the tire pressures up by at least 10 pounds. Now this won't harm the tires in any way, but it will allow you to have that feeling a little bit more of power steering. I think one thing we've got to realize in the cars we're testing right now, that the $2,000 car is no longer available. This is over $7,000, and I think we've got to get down to that reality in today's world, that that's what it's going to cost us for a motor car. And I think this car fits its needs, really, as it's meant to be. It's a nice, little, surprising car with a few criticisms, as I've given you. However, on a basic top-line car in this class being a 10, I would give this car a 7.
Our overall impressions of the Tercel could best be summed up by saying that it's an unpretentious car that gets on with the job at hand reasonably efficiently and without a lot of fuss.
The Toyota Tercel, definitely a car to consider if you're in the market for relatively inexpensive, efficient transportation. Our thanks to Bill Dockstader Toyota on Kingsway, the Sports Car Club of BC, and of course to Tony Morris of Circuit Tire. See you next week for another edition of AutoCheck on Consumer Retorts.